Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber. Today, I'm sitting here with one of my favorite love coaches. I think she is like the cream of the crop, Annie Lalla. Welcome, Annie.
Yay!
Your first episode of Deepen with Christina.
Let's go deep.
It's so wild that this is your first episode.
I know. We've done so much work together. And I'm finally doing the interview.
So much work together. Yes. Well, and now it's video. So I've always
Fantastic.
had an audio podcast, first video podcast, second guest here with me on the video podcast. And when I was envisioning hosting a mastermind for your love life, you were on top of my list. I have got to get Annie Lalla here. Witnessing you over the years and how you show up for love, how you support people, even just I get to socialize with Annie here in Austin, Texas often. And she is just popping around from community member to community member at a party, even new people that you meet. And she's so fascinated with how's your love life? And people confess and share all their secrets. And then within 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, there's an immediate upgrade. And they walk away being like, why didn't I know this before?
That's right.
And
Well,
it's almost a deep remembering at the same time.
Yes. I mean, when you're doing your dharma, when you're actually operating in the domain that you literally came here to do with your life, it's enlivening, it's empowering. There's really nothing else I'd rather talk about.
I agree.
There's like nothing. I mean, when I want to meet someone, I want to know, how is your heart work? Where is it working? Where is it expanding? Where is it contracting? And how can I offer some tools and technologies and maps that I've been collecting that could support you? I mean, that's what we do. We collect tools to help people fall in love.
One of my favorite questions to ask when I socialize is, how's your love life? And I find that people either are like, whoa, are you really asking me that question right now? How much time do you have?
Yes.
Thank you. Or they get a little bit startled, and some have invited me into private Zoom conversations to continue that, and actually have become Love Club members because of it.
Yep.
So like, where is the space that I can talk about love? But I imagine that is one of your favorite questions to ask people as well. How's your love life? Where does that obsession come from in you around love?
Oh, wow. Oh, as far back as I can remember, I literally remember doing the Foursquare. Remember we had Foursquare at school recess, and my friends would get into fights, and I would always end up being the one mediating. And when we got into high school and there was like issues with boys or even drama with parents, somehow I'd end up being the one coaching them. This is like, I grew up and I went to university. I got my degree in biology and philosophy, and I was going to be like, I don't know, some scientist. Then I ended up working in IT consulting. And the only reason my projects would get pushed through and I was successful was because I was coaching all the developers on their love life. And I was basically building relationships between the business development and the software programmers, which are like warring husband and wife. So I'm really good at mediating. And honestly, if I look at the origin, I think my parents, even though they loved each other, they just had a lot of drama. And maybe as a child, I just looked up and I was like, there is a way to find the overlap between the two Venn diagrams of what my mom wanted and what my dad wanted. But as a kid, I didn't really know how to fix it. But I really spent the rest of my life figuring it out. Even when I went to university, I did my thesis for philosophy on the philosophy of love. So I've been interested for a long time. And honestly, even when I was an IT consultant for like 10 years, all I really ever wanted to talk to people about was what's going on in their heart. And it doesn't mean just romantically, like what's going on in your heart and your dynamic with your parents, with your kids, with your family members. Any place there's two hearts dancing, I want to help the dance go better. And so in the end of it, I actually did end up coaching my parents a lot on their relationship. Took them into ceremony, took them to Burning Man, really stood for them finding new ways to relate so that they could have more peace and cohesion. So honestly, I think everyone's, superpower is a compensation for some heartbreak or some pain point from their childhood.
Most people didn't grow up observing healthy relationships.
No.
Topic is nearly completely neglected in our educational curriculum. So how did you learn to be so good at love yourself?
I became an avid researcher because it's all I want to talk to people about. So I've been researching, how do people relate to conflict, criticism? What are the standard reactions? What techniques or behaviors work to produce quicker, faster intimacy? You're like me. When we go to a party and we meet someone, we're not like, How's your day? Where do you live? Whose side of the wedding are you on? My first question is, tell me what do I say? What's your story? That's how I open a conversation. I want to go from zero to intimacy as fast as possible. And I've noticed that when I start to ask questions around relational dynamics, you get direct access to their heart, to their intelligence, to where they're struggling, where they're suffering. And it's almost like I'm a pain detective. I'm scanning for where people have suffering or pain and seeing in my toolkit, is there anything I can offer? It's almost like if someone has no issues, I don't even know what to say to them. I'm like, okay. But I respond and come alive to confusion, pain, suffering. I think because I'm an empath, and the idea that someone's suffering in vain is
Mm.
so heartbreaking to me that I've collected a whole bunch of tools that I just want to disseminate. Honestly, it's sometimes at a party, people will say, can I ask you a question about my relationship? Is it okay? I know you're off work. And I'm like, that's my life.
Me too.
It's all I want to talk about.
Me
It's like
too.
there's no other topic I'd rather talk about, so it's never an inconvenience. I don't think of it as work. I think of it as my purpose.
I I believe your intimacy journey is your life story.
Yeah.
So what is your journey to coming into love? I know you're married, been with your partner for
17 years.
17 years. You have a child named Love, of course.
Love being.
Love being. How did you two come into relationship?
Oh, well, I mean, I basically fell in love with Mount Everest. In fact, when I met him, he was a very famous dating coach. His name was David D'Angelo, like old school. He wrote a book called Double Your Dating. He was one of the first dating coaches for men. And then I met him after he'd kind of graduated from that, became an online marketer and teacher. But he was known as a dating coach. But the way I see it is like I pick up where he left off because I don't teach dating. I teach people how to find their soulmate, how to find their partner for life. And so when I met him, he kind of didn't believe in love, didn't believe in marriage, didn't want kids, thought love wasn't for him. And so when I kind of expressed some intrigue in him, he's like, why would you want me? I'm Mount Everest. And then I thought, yeah, I guess I'm here to climb Everest and then map that shit for everybody else. And I'm still mapping it, actually. And I have to say, of all the people I've ever dated, he's by far the most inspiring and extraordinary. And also more work than if you added every single guy I dated up together. Like it's the hardest relationship I've had in my life. But it's almost like he was custom crafted by the universe in his glory and his crazy so that I would have to build emotional musculature that up until then I'd never had to develop. Like the things he does that I don't like or that drive me crazy or that hurt me, my normal response to get them to change doesn't work. It falls flat. So I've had to find new creative ways to inspire him into a new behavior that has no shame or blame wrong and that kind of touches on his values. It's almost like I have to market to him using his values why this new set of behavior would be more aligned with his greatness. And that forces me to become a higher version of myself rather than a bitchy wife who's just like grumbling because it just doesn't work. And so I guess my story with him is he's eternally excellent at expressing his needs and wants, very self-referenced, very I-centered, individualistic, sovereign. I was always an empath, we-centered, attuned to his feelings, other people. And so I've learned from him how to empathize with myself because he's so good at it. He's good at empathizing with himself, but not so good at empathizing with others. So I've had to teach him that. I've had to teach him empathy algorithms about how to read between the lines and listen to what's unspoken, and including me, to tune in. When I say yes, that's fine. Really, it's no, I don't want to do that. And then I've had to teach. So I taught him how to do empathy for others, and he taught me how to empathize with my own needs, how to block out everybody else's needs and wants, and just really tune into what works for Annie. And so he's become my teacher. I'm his teacher, not in what he wants to learn, but what he most needs to learn to become more whole and complete. And he's become my teacher in how to have a strong, robust, unapologetic self that can make requests, have desires, and like make shit happen in the world.
You two met what I would call later in life.
Yeah, I
Like,
was 38,
Yeah,
between 38 and 39, and he was 39, and we met at Burning Man.
Did you know that you wanted to get married one day?
I knew I wanted to be a mother. And of course, every woman dreams about like, oh, finding her true love and getting married. And I definitely wanted to get married. But I literally, when I fell in love with him, he was like, I don't believe in marriage. So the first guy I'm really in love with, he's like, I don't believe in marriage. So I actually had to like learn how to cope with, like, do I want to be married or do I want to be in love? And I realized after some consideration and inquiry, I'd actually rather be in love than just be married.
Mhm.
Of course, I'd love both, but if I had to pick, I'd rather be in love. And this is why when people come to me as clients, like, I want to be married by the time I'm 35, I'm like, I can't help you. If you want mad, ungovernable love that's mythic and inspires people, I'll help you. I'll help you find your soulmate. And marriage is just a decoration. It's not, and I don't have decoration as a small thing. If you've been to my house, you see how I dress. Um, I think marriage has to be a decoration the way like a birthday party and a birthday cake is a decoration for your birthday. Like you're having your 50th birthday, no matter what. You can have a party or not, but you're still turning 50. So I want people to focus on making being in love and cultivating true love as their main game. And then marriage is this beautiful, amazing, decorative ceremony. But it's not the purpose. Because if you go for marriage, you might sacrifice being in love. And basically, every guy I dated before Eban, I realized I was settling. In fact, the guy I dated right before him wanted to get married. And he was like a psychotherapist at Columbia, smart, good looking, wanted to marry me. But I wasn't in love. And I literally almost said yes. And we even know a lot of people that are married and not in love.
How did you know that you weren't in love? Like, and what does being in love to you mean or feel like?
Yeah. Well, here's the thought I kept having after he'd already told me he was going to marry me and he was looking for a ring. So it was already happening. I started noticing my thoughts in my mind was like, well, if we don't work out, we'd have good looking children and he could support me with alimony. Like thoughts like that about a future where we were not together.
I've had
I
that.
was already coping with that.
Yeah.
And I caught that and I was like, oh my God. And also I felt one of the reasons I was feeling ushered into marrying him is because he constantly reminded me that I was 38. He's a doctor. And my ovaries were getting older and my eggs would be getting less healthy. And I started to have the biological clock terror that women have. 38 and no prospect. And I really, really wanted to be a mom. And so I realized what I was doing when I was marrying him or considering marrying him is I was settling for a baby daddy. And I think a lot of women go, well, he's good enough. But because I'm a love coach and I've worked with so many people who settled for the baby daddy and they have kids now and they're in this miserable marriage, I was just like, oh no, it gets worse. Because then you have a kid and you're with someone you're not in love with. And honestly, a relationship tests your ability to have tenacity and resolve issues. And if you're not in love, you need that level of strength and gravity so that not every part of you that wants to run runs. So I've just learned by being a love coach, don't settle. Don't settle for anything less than true love. And like, how do you know? Man, I think you're looking for someone who is the most inspiring person you've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be the most extraordinary person, though I was looking for that too, but the most inspiring for you to actualize to your highest potential. Like they become a trampoline for your dreams and a sanctuary for your heart. That's what you're looking for. A place where you're catapulted towards the visions that you hold, the highest vision. In fact, you fall in love with the other person's vision they have for you. You don't fall in love with them. You actually fall in love with the portal they offer to your greatness.
How about though there's that idea that find the partner that's worth suffering for.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes you can stay in a relationship because I'm getting so much growth from the suffering in this in our
Yes.
dynamic.
Yeah.
And that's like, then
How do you know when to leave?
Yeah. How do you know when to leave when like the inspiration is actually causing more pain than it is trampolining my dreams?
Totally. And that's a very private inquiry. There's many definitions for love that I collect, but one of them is who's worth the suffering. And you have two different people, two different histories, two different value sets. There's going to take some energy to tessellate these two different realities. So there's going to be conflict. So anyone who thinks that a healthy relationship doesn't have conflict is deluded. Hold on. What was the question now? I just lost it.
Suffering.
Suffering. Okay. When you go to the gym, you have to lift a barbell or you have to lift the weight. And there's a right amount of lifting that allows you to have micro tears in the muscle so that it can grow back stronger. There's a way of doing an exercise routine where you stress your muscle too much and it rips and tears. And now you're out of commission for 2-3 months. So it's this fine line of finding what is the suffering that is developmental, or what is it called? Hormesis, right? Good stress. And the way I determine it is I just want people to ask a very simple question. Is being in this relationship helping you fall more in love with yourself, your life, and the world? More often than not. So the whole point of being in a relationship is to fall more in love with your life, yourself, and the world, and to be feeling more enlivened and like your life, not enlivened like you're in a torture chamber. And so you kind of have to like feel into, is this relationship in terms of the ROI, the investment of the suffering and the work and the intensity and what you're gaining from it. And it's not just a workout at the gym. It's, do you like who you're becoming? This is what helps like codependent empaths figure out if they're with a narcissist. Is like, well, it's all this work I have to do. But at the end of the day, do you fall more in love with yourself being in this relationship with the person? Do you see new versions of your own magnificence? Because your partner is a sacred mirror. Their job is to reflect your beauty, your poetry, your intelligence, your magnificence, but also to reflect back all the places that you are going into your patterns, your unconscious habits. So you want a nice balance between, I've never seen myself as beautiful as I do seeing in my partner's eyes reflected. And they're also a fierce stand for my greatness. It's that hybrid of trampoline and sanctuary. So, I mean, if I had a specific situation, I usually can help individual clients figure it out. But there has to be an ROI for you. Not just you're following your attachment pattern, which is, oh, my dad was abusive. So that's coded as familiar, and familiar is coded as safe. And so I feel safe because this guy treats me in a familiar way. But is this way actually, another way to think about it is if you had a daughter, like for women listening, if you had a daughter and she was in a relationship like the one you're in, as her mother, what would you want for her? And if it's not a fuck yeah, take a look again.
I think it's good for men to even think of the woman that they're dating.
Yeah.
Would you want her to be in a relationship with somebody like you?
Yeah.
So
if you had a daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take me back, though. You're now dating a man who doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to have children.
Doesn't believe in love.
Doesn't even believe in love.
Yes.
And before we jump there, the first podcast, the one before this with Jordan Bowditch, at the end, I invited him to ask me a question. He said, Christina, do you want to get married? And I don't want to not get married.
Yeah.
What I view marriage is this container for, I like winning in life.
Yeah.
I love accomplishment.
Yeah.
And so there's like this, in our dynamic with a human being, the idea that we would earn, and people can argue, like earn love, but I do think there's some earnership when it comes to, when I think of a soulmate experience, that to me is an earned experience.
It's an accomplishment.
It's such an accomplishment.
I actually think it is the highest accomplishment
I think it's the
there
highest
is for a human being to have.
To
be in love.
Me too.
Now, and by the way, I'm not anti-marriage.
I know you're not
really encourage people to be married, but I want people to, honestly, I think if you're in love with the right partner and you take marriage off as a requirement and you build the relationship, I'm pretty sure you can get any man or woman to actually marry you if it's not a prerequisite.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But for me, in a previous relationship, there was a never get married.
Exactly.
I was like, when there's absolutes, I feel trapped.
Exactly.
It's like,
and why do you have an absolute? Why isn't it, I'm open, but I'm not feeling it right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like the process that, we are going to dating. I think a lot of people skip dating these days. They jump right into, they go from talking to fucking. Like that's the only thing right there, one to the next. And instead of being in the process of elongating the spaciousness to really get to know somebody,
being in an inquiry,
jumping into bed, before moving in with each other really quickly, being in that inquiry.
And an interview. You're interviewing for the most important job you'll ever hire for.
Yeah. And the interview isn't so stuffy. Like you wouldn't meet somebody right away and give them 50% of your business. You're going to actually dance. Like, how do we dance together?
Do your due diligence.
And then you're going to practice dancing.
Yes.
And if you dance really well together, then maybe you've earned this engagement. And then how do you do as an engaged couple?
Yes.
And if you do well as an engaged couple, then you get married.
Yeah.
And then do you make it to a year anniversary?
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment. 5 years, 10 years, like those. I love when I don't know them off my head now at this point, but I remember there was these like a year together is like this silver accomplishment, and then 5 years is this golden accomplishment. And it's not just about being together for time's sake, but the quality and the development. I think love and growth go hand in hand.
Yes, it
That's
must
what you're
evolve.
saying, the trampoline for your dreams. It's like when I'm with you, I am becoming so much more than I could be on my own as an individual.
Yes.
And that is the highest game. So love is the container. And without ever, I think, establishing, and I don't think you need a governmental marriage necessarily.
But a commitment witnessed by your culture and your society to hold you accountable.
Yes, to stand in front. That's why I love marriage.
Yeah.
You stand in front of your friends, family, and loved ones, and you're like, this is really important to us. Will you support our dynamic?
Will you hold this as sacred?
Yes.
Yeah.
And because if not, then it's so easy to break up.
Yeah.
I can just leave in any moment, but this gives me a reason to say. Now,
but the only thing that's more keeping you together than the cultural reinforcement of the marriage is to also be in love, because then there's nowhere to run. So I want both.
I had the experience when I had gone through a breakup recently where I, inside of We Deepen and Love Club and Love Immersions, we hold our couples as sacred. We support couples in love.
Yes.
And I found that when I went through a breakup, a lot of people didn't know how to respond to us.
Yeah.
Because we were very much in community.
And in an inquiry about he said, she said, and who knows.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I think also too, somewhat had their own personal agenda.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we like the couple better together, or we like them separate.
Yeah.
How does one, because people asked me throughout that process, wait, we don't know what to do now that you've broken up.
Yeah.
How does a community support a couple when they're going through rupture? If we're all going to be the witnesses of a couple getting married, how do we actually play that role?
Yeah. Well, remember, it's not a breakup. It's a graduation. You're graduating from the school of that relationship. When you graduate, you have your degree, and it's always a success. A relationship's never a failure because you got an education from it. You learned what works, what doesn't work. So you're holding as this graduation ceremony. And the way I do it is I'm always working on behalf of the relationship, being its most extraordinary version. So if you were dating someone and you were considering, graduating from it, I'm thinking in my mind, how would I advise you so that your future friendship, co-parenting, relational dynamic with that person, even if you're not romantic anymore, how can I optimize for you guys having the most beautiful version of the graduation? So I'm not taking your side or his side. I'm on the side of the us, either keeping it strong and together or supporting triumphantly a graduation with dignity and grace, but always optimizing for the self-esteem of both people, whether they stay together or they graduate. And I think a lot of people feel the need to take sides. It's like either his side or her side, but there's a third entity. It's the relationship entity, and it has its own character. And, I know the person you're talking about, and we fall in love with that little relationship entity and we get used to it. And I always held that there would be a friendship in the future, because I think once you start loving someone, you never stop. And I think that's what we need to do as a community, is remind each partner, once you stop loving someone, you never stop. And I'm going to hold that love as sacred even as you graduate. So how would I advise you to behave so that you can be proud of it? And the quality of your last breakup or graduation governs your success in the next. So you want to do it in a way that has as much beauty and poetry, and you tie it in a bow and not leave it open-ended bleeding. And, you want to feel proud of how you graduated. So it's worth putting energy into it.
How does the community know whether this couple, if they should support the breakup, the graduation, or the reuniting of them coming back?
So
together?
my rule of thumb is to always support the romantic possibility. So they always feel like I'm standing for it, but I'm not death grip attached to it. And I'm asking them questions, the answers to which will highlight whether this relationship is helping them be a trampoline for their dreams or a sanctuary for their heart, or helping them fall more in love with themselves, their life, and the world. So I'm helping them answer questions that the answers, when they hear themselves say it, they realize, oh, this does not feel like it's enlivening me. And I'm not going to tell them to break up, because every couple that's together is together because there's a nutrient or an education they came to get from the us, and they will not graduate until they get that nutrient or that education. So even if you have a couple in your community that's fighting and they're always drama, they're together still because they haven't learned what they need to learn yet. And once they do, they'll either go to the next level of us or they'll graduate. So I'm never promoting a breakup. I am just holding a mirror and letting them see, how are they feeling about themselves? Is their self-esteem going up or down? Do they love their life more or less? Are they encouraged towards their dreams more or less? Like, that data will help them get clear.
Mm. So take me to, so we're going to, again, rewind.
Yeah.
You and Eban
Yes.
are dating.
Yeah.
He never wants to get married and he doesn't want to have children. You two are now married for
17 years.
17 years.
17 years, yeah. And we have a daughter.
And an 11-year-old.
13.
13.
Yeah.
13-year-old daughter.
So what happened? Okay, well, first, I'll quote Zig Ziglar. The sale starts when the customer says no. One thing I noticed with Eban is he'd say all these things, like these absolutes, but then I would listen to his soul or his heart, and I'd watch how he'd talk to people, and I watched how he mentored his students, like how much he cares about teaching and making sure someone understands something. And I was like, wow, that's real fatherhood. Mentorhood is fatherhood. When I started probing about why he was afraid of marriage, why he was afraid of kids, he never told me this. I reverse engineered it. I realized, oh, he had a very fraught relationship with his father. His father was like a bitchy older brother that kind of mocked him. And I don't think he ever really felt safe or refuge with his father. So I think he had a terror. He never told me this, but I think he had a terror of not being a good dad because he didn't have a good role model. So I was watching this from the sidelines and I'm like, oh, he's terrified of ruining some kid's life. That's actually quite respectable. So then I systematically, over the next year, highlighted for him moments of interacting with women and men students and friends where he was being an excellent, beautiful mentor, caregiver, supporter. And I kept naming that as, just so you know, that's what a good father does. You did such a great job here. That's actually what a father does. So I was reinventing for him what fatherhood was by showing him the way he loved others was actually already that. Now, I didn't tell him I was trying to shift his identity as someone who could be a great father, but that's what I was doing. So that's what I was doing with the fatherhood thing. And with the child thing, I was watching how he talked about children. And again, he was like, well, it's the same thing. He was afraid of ruining their lives. And then marriage, what came up with marriage is that he had a lot of friends who were well off, who got taken. They got divorced and then their wife took everything. And I realized, oh, he's terrified about finances. And so I just made it my business to make sure that I never took advantage of him financially. Like, I would pay for things, I never let him pay for everything. I let him know that I see this relationship as equal. I still had my business going. I was building it. I also, I'm trying to think what else I did. Basically, to tell you the real truth, Eban and I never got legally married. We got married with a big hoopla with like 80 people, and there was no paperwork. And I didn't care about the paperwork. I really wanted the community thing. But there was always this like, if you get married, there's a safety. I think one of the reasons I didn't force the legal part is I wanted him to know, like, I'm actually choosing you, whether you take care of me or not. Because you shouldn't marry someone if you don't actually trust that they care about your well-being, whether you're with them or not. So it was a show of trust. In fact, I even had a daughter with him before we got legally married. We didn't get legally married until my daughter was on my hip at the town hall because I had to go to Canada for my sister's wedding and we need to do some paperwork. And I was like, I think we need to get married.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah. We got married, but he never was precluding
Did he get down on one knee and propose?
Yes, actually he did. He did. But that was for I skipped it. So basically we were at a New Year's Eve party and all our friends were there. And he spontaneously that night decided he wanted to marry me, but he hadn't planned it. So he borrowed his ring off his friend's finger and then lined up the 4 women that were at the party were women that he's either worked with or dated before, and they were good friends. And so he lined them all up in a line, and I was the 4th one. And systematically, he stood in front of each of them and thanked them for all the things he learned from them, all the lessons about the feminine, bowed in front of them, and then went to the next. So I thought this was this beautiful ceremony of like appreciating the woman in his life. So he did it to each woman. And when he got to me, he shared all the things he's learned from me, what he loved about our relationship, and then bowed. But this time he asked me to marry him in front of the whole group.
Were you surprised?
Totally surprised. Totally surprised. And of course, I yelled yes. I was so delighted. And that's how it happened in front of everybody.
Wow.
And I loved how he demonstrated to the men in the room, every woman I've dated has helped shape me into the man that could finally love Annie. And I think also bowing in front of the women was also a gesture that was transformational.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Gosh, when you shared that, it almost took my thoughts away. And I was like, wow, I haven't heard that piece of your story. So what would you tell a woman who really wanted to find a man to take care of her?
Yeah. Well, I would first ask her, do you feel like you'd like to be a mother someday? Do you want to have a family? Most of the time they say yes. So I would start with that. And I would say, okay, what do you think is the mark of a great mother? And they would tell me whatever. And I would say, okay, and the mark of a great mother is also being the kind of woman that could raise her child, whether her partner was alive or not. Because if you have to always be tracking, when my partner's not there, can I hang? And you're teaching a child how to take care of themselves in life. And if you don't know you don't have to be working, but if you don't know how to work and handle your lower Maslow stuff, like if you couldn't pay rent if you needed to, you don't have that wiring, like scaffolding in your psyche, and it will be very hard for you to teach a child to become self-sufficient. And so for me, personally, it was very important that I'm able to take care of myself. And then I did find someone who could take care of me, though I never stopped working, honestly. I've stayed working the whole time. But the only reason I think he could triumphantly surrender to taking care of me, especially when I was like pregnant in the first year of my rearing my daughter, I didn't have to work, was because he knew I could. So I don't know if you've heard of the pre-trans fallacy. It's a Ken Wilber term, but it basically means developmentally, there's a conventional level. And when you go post-conventional, it looks like pre-conventional. So an example might be like a woman's at a restaurant with a man and she can't afford the dinner and she can't afford her life and she's looking for someone to support her. So he might order the food and he might pay for it and open the door and hire the taxi. And it feels very feminine. And you're like, okay, look at that. And then there's another woman in the restaurant who's with a man and he opens the door and hires the taxi and even maybe pays for the meal. But she's got her own finances sorted. She could probably run the restaurant. They look the same on a camera, but in one scenario, the woman who's financially sophisticated, she has a choice to pay or not. And she's choosing to occupy her feminine. And the man knows that. And that's what allows him to be triumphant about taking care of it. In the first scenario, the woman couldn't handle herself. And so while there's nothing wrong with that, if she's going to be a mother and demonstrate self-sufficiency, also if she wants to have equal power in the relationship, because no matter how much a guy loves you, we all know what it's like when you work for a boss and you're not free to just say your mind because the boss could fire you. When someone has got all the financial purse strings and you don't have the personal esteem to know that I could handle myself, even if you weren't working, no, I could, they will have a power and control over you that will be subtle and that you will unconsciously surrender to. And you won't have an equal dynamic, like two wings on one bird, a relationship. Because if one wing is more powerful than the other, the bird veers into the ground. And I'm always fighting for a collaborative relationship. It's very hard to have one if you don't know that you could handle yourself, without that partner.
Well, we also all go through different phases in life.
Yeah.
And different levels of investment that we're making in ourselves and our career, and also health challenges.
Yes.
So somebody could be in a state of, I'm overcoming a mold challenge. And
Yes.
or
you're building your business.
Building my business. And sometimes when we are in those stages, I've been this way before, of thinking that now is not the right time for me to focus on relationship because I'm focused on building. Would you Would you agree with that? That to take the pause away from investing in dating or investing in intimacy, to put that off so that I can build in the
No,
interim, so then I can be that right partner? Because I know for myself, I do want to be an equal partner. And I've gone through phases where I'm building and I'm like, push that off. When I achieve this, I can get that.
that's the danger, is you have all these reasons for why you're putting off dating, which is actually funded by low-level terror of intimacy, but it's dressed up in all these other reasons. I gotta build my empire. Life's about balancing all these different realms. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be building your empire and falling in love and trying to run a family. And you better learn to start juggling now. And so you want to be in relationship while you're building. You want to be practicing relationship. I say this to men and women. It's not like, oh, when I do this, then I'll be ready for love. No, you need to be practicing right now. You don't wait to go to the gym until you've lost, you don't wait till you're fit to go to the gym. You go to the gym wherever you're starting from. And a relationship is a gym for your emotional muscles.
Do you believe everybody can be in a healthy relationship? Is everybody made for a relationship, or some people it's best to not date them this lifetime?
You're talking to an idealist here, so I'm just going to be honest. I hold the belief that true love is available for everybody. And in terms of a healthy relationship, there's no standard externally of what's healthy. It's what do you need to create in terms of transformation and growth and development so that you can dance the long-term dance with this person. There's no external sense of what's healthy. It's once you fall in love, you're going to have to grow to make this work. And what your partner needs from you when it's congruently held, like their congruent needs, not their OCDs and their addictions. A congruent need from a partner that's in love with you and that you're in love with is your next development step. What they need is actually what's going to call you into greatness. And so I think your question was,
Is everybody
health available for healthy?
available for true love?
Everybody's available for
Can everyone be a right partner for true love?
everyone has the ability to become a right partner. But the way you become a right partner is by practicing. You have to practice in relationships. How do you learn? Like, you can't practice relationship on your own. So everyone you're dating is either the one or practice for the one. So you want to bring your A game, right? Olympic medalists don't wait for Olympics Day to bring their best game. They're practicing every morning, bringing their A game. And so dating is the process of practicing, being in relationship, noticing what works, what doesn't work, what alienates you from people. And so when I'm working with singles, I just want them to be out there on the treadmill, practicing their muscles, and then coming back and we iterate. And if you have repeated patterns across your dating life, there's some opportunity for you to grow. And it's not that you're doing something wrong. It's that my guess is that there's a habit or a pattern or a program that's puppeting you, and you're not actually being your authentic, real essence. And so my job is to actually not change you, but to scrape away the barnacles off the bow, like scrape away everything that's not you, all those wound-driven strategies and habits, to reveal the magnificent, unfurling, poetic human that you are, which is what the person falls in love with. We only get into trouble when that magical, poetic essence gets covered over by these strategies from childhood that you use to protect yourself. And that's not you, that's defense mechanisms. So your partner's going to call up all your defenses, and your job is to scrape past them and like reveal the magnum opus of who you are underneath.
So have practice partners.
Yeah.
Practicing for true love. And I imagine it's not just because most people don't necessarily have the skills or the tools to just be in the practice.
Yes.
And both you and I, together and individually, Love Club, Love Immersions, Heart Coaching Program.
Yep.
What do you find? Why are people reluctant to invest in this area of their life? Because most people, they will wait. Divorce is, I Googled this just the other day, is $10,000 to $15,000 on average, sometimes being $100,000 plus.
That's just the finances, not the emotional cost.
Exactly. And most people don't end up in therapy until it's too late. So why, as a society, are we not investing in love from the start?
Honestly, I think it's shifting. I remember when I started being a love coach, people are like, what's a love coach? And now they're kind of a common thing. I think there's a stigma that historically people had around therapy in general, though it's getting better. Like everyone in New York has a therapist. The stigma around needing help around something that you're supposed to know for free. Like relationships, well, we all had them with our parents and our friends, and we should just know how to do them. But actually, there's laws of physics around what makes relationships thrive. And I've been studying them. You've been studying them. And if you wanted to learn how to bicycle or play piano or do, create an app with AI, you would go get tutelage. You would go get a coach or a mentor or a program, and you would learn. I think it's just starting, and you're part of that movement, is building an ecology around education when it comes to matters of the heart. I personally think it's the most important thing to learn, because your happiness is pinned more to that than any financial success. I know a lot of millionaires who are miserable. So the money doesn't cure that existential yearning for fulfillment. So I think there's a stigma. I think people don't realize how much it costs to have painful relationships until they're in the pain. And in the middle of a fight, I could tell a client, many people would pay $1,000 right there just to solve this issue with their wife or their husband on a Friday afternoon. But they don't realize that they just spent $300 or $500 earlier to build some technology and language and shared reality. They'd not only not have the fight, but they'd have weeks and weeks of synchrony and getting along and collaborating. And, conflict is a collaboration trying to happen. So I see conflict as an attempt to collaborate. And a really successful relationship is a collaboration on where you live, on what you do together, on what you build, on your children. So you're going to have to learn to collaborate at some point. You can split test, trial and error, and waste a lot of tears and blood and pain. Or you can go find teachers, mentors, programs that are custom crafted to support you in this education. And honestly, I think it's priceless because it impacts your self-esteem, how you relate to your friends, your family, your romantic partners. What you learn in your programs upgrades every facet of your life, including your business.
Something I've learned from you say, is that women are the visionary leaders of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You shared that with me in a coaching call with a previous partner. And I left that call and I went and made a PowerPoint presentation of a vision deck, because that's how I could lay it out, of our relationship, included what him and I brought into the dynamic, our own entity, what that becomes, what's the vision for that entity, our love counsel, who we'd go to for when conflict came up, who would hold our relationship at a highest standard.
It was beautiful. It was exquisite.
It was so much fun to recreate. And also, I found during that period that I felt a lot of pressure of being that, wait, this is my responsibility, because you mentioned in what you just shared, there is a collaboration.
Yes.
The couple is collaborating together, but then the woman is this visionary leader. So how does one reconcile collaboration plus the excitement, let's call it the excitement, and the pressure for being the visionary leader? And then how does a man respond to her being the visionary leader?
It's a great question. Okay, so I think of the female and male polarities, and I think they're not gender related, because you have masculine and feminine energies, right? But let's say the typical feminine energy, which both men and women have, is the energy of the steering wheel. Okay, it's directional. The feminine inside of us is the one that can visit the future, see what's possible, and then come back to the present moment with the blueprints. And literally, I think the women in general, the reason we can see the future clairvoyantly is because we actually create the future in our body. Whether you want to have kids or not, we are capable of literally creating the next generation. So I think we commune with the future through our intuition with much more prowess. So female intuition is the steering wheel. So that's the feminine polarity. And the masculine polarity, which you also have, is the engine, the problem solving, make it so engineering part. So the steering wheel's job is to point, and then the engine makes it happen. And you can't ask the engine to point, and the steering wheel doesn't have the engine part. But notice that the steering wheel has to lead the process. So it's just the leadership, but the make it happen, let's make it go in that direction, is the masculine part of the system. So I think of the female as like the Steve Jobs of the relationship. Like Steve Jobs had a vision that everybody would hold a personal computer in their hand, and no one believed him, and it was crazy. And he wouldn't ask like the accountant or the secretary, like, do you believe in me? Do you think we can do this? He had to be the sole source of possibility. And he was a rogue, character in that. But his resoluteness, and by the way, Steve Jobs did not make the iPhone. Like he probably he had nothing to physically making it. So he had to subcontract that out, the making it happen, to the company. But he's a visionary leader. And I think a lot of women are terrified and see that as pressure because they have to actually climb out of the little girl part of them that is daddy, rescue, save me, which we all have, and actually grow ourselves up into the visionary leader, mother, woman. Because a mother is the visionary leader of the family. That's what a man's looking for, even if he doesn't want kids. His evolutionary impulse is looking for a woman to lead the system that I'm part of forward. Where do we live? What do we do? How do we spend our money? Like this requires a visionary. And so when I say the woman's a visionary leader, I mean you have to use your imagination and your creativity to hold a vision of what's possible with this entity and then communicate that in a way that enrolls and inspires them. That makes them want to go, okay, she wants a house, she wants to live in the country. And it excites and inspires him and makes him want to collaborate on that. So they collaborate on both parts, the visioning and the make it so, but the actual first vision of we want to have a child, we want to be married, it's usually the woman. I mean, it was for me. My husband didn't have a vision for marriage, kids, building a business together, all of which he thanks me daily for. And so I say it that way because I want women to have the audacity to actually own the soft part. It's not actually any physical thing. It's closing her eyes and breathing through her insecurities, her fears, her anxieties, and holding that vision and then learning to communicate it in an enrolling way. And that's a very important skill to be a mother, to be a leader. And, I've spent my life honing it. I mean, literally, I've had to enroll and inspire my husband into almost everything that I've wanted. And what's interesting is if I can't enroll and inspire him, then maybe it's not meant to happen. I can't shame or blame or coerce because it just literally doesn't work. So really only your most congruent needs, it's almost like what the universe wants to have happen next, comes in through a woman's intuition. And I think intuition is your future successful self whispering to you what to do next. And women just have a better rapport with their own intuition because it's through the body.
If there is a woman in relationship and she wants more. She's like, I see there's so much possibility in love. And she's with a person that she really enjoys being with.
Yes.
And finds that she's struggling with or grappling with, do I lower my standards in some way to meet this other person here? Or do I continue dreaming of this reality that I don't know is even possible yet, but I just feel like I think a lot of us women, I'll speak for women and I am speaking for a whole gender right now in this moment. And whether you resonate or not, just hear me out. I think that we feel that there's like this opportunity for big love.
Yeah,
like
the biggest
big
love.
Love is available. And this like, how do we bring the other up into that? Or do we bring our standards down?
I don't believe in compromise. I know that's controversial. I don't believe in compromise. I believe, if I spend $200 at Target and I buy a bike, I'm not compromising my $200. I'm investing it in something that I value more. I want the bike more than the $200. So there's an ROI. So what looks like compromise to one person can actually be an investment at something at a lower level for something at a higher level. So you never want to bring your standards down. And what I would say to a woman who's like, well, how do I raise him? You have to create a custom crafted marketing campaign using his values, his keywords, and persistence and systematic enrollment for him to click on the button. It's literally, most people just want to complain, grumble, shame, blame. It's a short-term attempt to get the change in the other person. But what the other person feels is, oh, you don't like me exactly as I am. you will only love me if I change. And some part of the human spirit, an inherent dignity, says, I am not changing until you love me exactly as I am. But when I ask the woman, I'm like, well, do you actually love him exactly as he is? Even if he never changed? If he never changed, is he still the most inspiring, extraordinary man you ever met? And they'll like whisper, like, yes, but don't tell him that. And so it's interesting, but once a man knows that truth, that you love him exactly as he is, even if he never changed, and you're standing for a version of him that's even more aligned with his values, I think you'll have you'll have more enrollment. But the version of woman you'd have to become to scrape off the shame, blame, and make wrong, and to actually find the enrolling, inspiring way that speaks to his values, which takes research and strategy, that makes you a more extraordinary leader, woman, visionary, influencer. So you have to climb out of your shadow to actually make it work. And I've noticed I've tried to get Eban to do lots of things and they don't work. And then I had to like go to a coach and take a program and learn. And then I realized, oh, let me try it this way, which is way harder and forces me to work through all my shadow, which, I'm part grumbling and part happy about. And then when I do it in this new way through my shadow at a next level, it works. So this is what I've learned is if you're doing something that's not working, you need to start split testing more options. And you'll find that there is an option that requires you to move past your habits and your programs that you will feel more proud of it. Like I'm more proud of the way that I inspire him now than how I used to, and they would just work better. So I also want to say, in a relationship, there's two forces. We can call the force of appreciating your partner exactly as they are, imperfect, wabi-sabi, broken, but also magnificent. And there's a part of you that's standing fiercely for their potential, who you see they could be. Not someone different, but someone actually more themselves, less puppeted by habits, patterns, and myopias. So the part that sees them perfect exactly as they are and the part that's standing for their greatness, there's an order. When someone feels loved exactly as they are, they have the internal resource and self-esteem to then be open to hearing the vision about the greatness. But if you go in with, here's what I think you could be, but they feel shamed for who they are right now, their system doesn't have the resource to climb the Mount Everest of scraping off all those patterns. So it's counterintuitive, but telling someone, I love you exactly as you are, even if you never changed, and here's what's possible, here's what it would do for you, here's how it would help you live into your own values better, here's how it would help me, it's very compelling, but they're not being run out of fear. They're being run out of inspiration. And I think that's the shift.
Thank you for how you invest in love and your own brilliance to come up like your own story to cultivate these codes inside of you.
Yeah.
And of course, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I'm so blessed that you are part of We Deepen and Love Club. And if you're listening to this, I'm sure you've gotten a ton of codes and it doesn't have to stop here. You can come join us in person because while we can play together on the internet and you can listen to this on Spotify or Apple, what is so much more enjoyable is being right here in front of us with us and learning these love codes together. Because Annie, you have been to 5 of the 6 love immersions that we've done this far. And one of my favorite things that you've said after this last one is like, wow, I even get something. I get new codes from coming and be in this space in person with the group. Can you share, actually, if you were to give an insight of what it's like from your experience as a coach to be in these spaces at a We Deepen Love Immersion?
Well, first of all, I'll just speak from a non-coach perspective. If someone's joining this love immersion, you're literally around world-class experts who have mapped the territory of relationships. So you curate with precision, which I love. I wouldn't participate in something that where I didn't have allies that I could look over and be like, we're on team love together. So I love that you curate for intelligence and prowess, emotional sophistication. But someone coming into love immersion, you're literally watching people work through their issues. You're watching someone get up and share their most heartbreaking relationship patterns, whether they're single or coupled. And you're watching them get coached in real time. And I guarantee you, everybody has visited the problem that that person's struggling with at some point in their life. And so you are having breakthroughs and epiphanies while you're watching someone else go through the process. So and where do you get to see someone else go through their most intimate experience in public? And it's done with such pristine safety. So I don't think you can leave the love immersion without having at least 10 breakthroughs in your relationship game. Then as a coach, I'm watching other coaches deal with the same issue in a different way than I would. Because everyone has different savvies, different superpowers. I'm more lyrical and metaphorical. Some coaches are more somatic and physical, and you get to learn from each other. But also, these quintessential questions is like, what should I tolerate? What is reducing my self-esteem? What should I fight for? When should I stay? When should I go? These are eternal questions that we're all asking in our relationships. Even I, probably twice a year, I'm like, did I marry the wrong guy? I don't know. Let me look at it. And I let myself look at it. I always come out of it. But the questions come up in the room and you get to revisit the things you take for granted in your own love life. So whether you're, just a regular human wanting to get support or you're a transformational coach, you can't leave a love immersion without your life changed.
Mm. And each of these love immersions, what I really appreciate having you in the space as one of my mentors, not only in love, but also in business, because there's not many people who have made a career of love. Actually, I can remember Krista, who's one of our Love Club members. And at the end of her first love immersion, she said to me, I didn't know that my career could be love. And it's so beautiful for people to even witness that, like this opportunity, it's so prime. It's like, this is the new frontier. I like to say that in the 1980s, fitness became popular. The late 1990s, early 2000s in the West, yoga became popular.
Mm-hmm.
2010, biohacking. And now we've just entered 2026, and this love industry, the love and relationship industry, is the next frontier.
It is. It's pro-human, especially in the age of AI. The quintessential feature of the human game is our capacity to love and to fall in love. Like, it's what makes us most sophisticated species. And so I think culture is going to double down on this game. I don't feel like my job's going anywhere.
Most people don't even know that the love industry exists just yet,
Wow.
and all that's available to them inside of it. And being at this, what we're doing, like we're taking a lot of risks, inviting people into these spaces. You say that a love immersion and Love Club is a safe space. And I agree, it is a safe space. And I also get concerned about that word safety, because it's both.
It's safe enough to transcend your blind spots.
Yes. Because we had a moment at our last love immersion, and I get to be in everything. The medicine is like perfect that comes in each moment because it's a live event.
Yeah.
And
some real shit's coming out.
If you've done live events in your life, in your career, you know how live events go. It's like we are all immersed in something. And each love immersion, there's 40 people in the space. We do Biohacking Love, which is a shorter 2-day event. But this one is a full-on 3-day immersion. We are all in it. And at this last event, we had an experience where Sarah Solstice, who she's got some deep love codes. I'll give you guys a little insight of who Sarah Solstice is. Sarah Solstice is she's about my age. I'm 45. She grew up as a little Amish girl. They only played praise music on her land, and they had no outside media, so no access to outside media. 8 years old, she sees MTV for the very first time, makes the decision that when she grows up, she's going to go find the party and lead the party. By the time she was 20, she's opening for Britney Spears. She then went on into the music industry for the next decade, opened for Jessica Simpson, Outkast, O-Town. And after a decade in the music industry, she became a bit disenchanted of, we have 30,000 people in front of us.
And we could do anything with their imagination and minds.
Yes. Why aren't we telling them about what's possible and what's available to us? Yeah. And now she's a bit, I like to look at Sarah's, it's like if Buddha and Britney Spears were the same person, it would be Sarah Solstice. And she came in, it was part of this last love immersion, and it triggered some energy in the space and moments, because within that we invited some additional people into the space. And so we worked through it as a community.
She's also a transformational poetess, unfurling in real time the codes of the universe. And so if you're not in alignment with that, it'll bring up some of, your terror. But that's what great leaders do.
And her experience that she leads is called Cash.
Mm-hmm.
We'll actually be doing one, if you're listening to this before May 30th, we'll be doing another Cash experience separately on its own on the evening of Saturday, May 30th, right after the biohacking conference. We'll be at the Beyond Biohacking Conference. Annie will be at the Beyond Biohacking Conference as well. May 26th, pre-conference night, we'll do a little speed introduction. One of the things, I got brought into the biohacking community in 2022 as an invitation to host the singles event at the conference. And at the time, I was like, wow, this is revolutionary. Finally, there is an interest-based conference with people who are invested in a high quality of life, longevity, mental health, mental well-being, and they are now going to be willing to introduce people at this conference for the purpose of love.
And love is the ultimate biohack.
Love is the ultimate biohack.
Being in love keeps you alive longer than any of those other shit that they do at the conference.
2022, I walked around. I was the only person talking about relationship there. Maybe if you were there, you might have seen someone else. Jaya from Erotic Blueprints, she was there as well.
Great.
But I walked around to, the people selling supplements and red lights and all the gadgets and gizmos, and would ask them about their love lives, and their eyes would widen and be like, we're not talking about that here. What's that? What are we going to do about that? We don't really know. And now to see how the biohacking community has accepted, is now supporting the love industry in its development as well, and bringing those two together. So May 26th, we will be at the biohacking conference for pre-night. Get there early, come be with us. Love Club will be exhibiting there. Biohacking Love the day after with the Cash experience. But I'm curious, I brought that up of this Sarah Solstice experience, and you had mentioned you had a transformational experience yourself being in that environment.
Yeah, I mean, she's literally, nothing she said could be argued with. And it was the spontaneous eruption of ecstatic attunement with love, bliss, universal knowledge. And she's just a roving poetess. And, I'm named after Lalla, a Sufi mystic poet who literally ran around the countryside uttering ecstatic poetry. And when asked why she was naked, they asked Lalla why she was naked, and she said, nothing is more beautiful than this day to wear. So how could I put clothes on? And so she's basically like a Sufi mystic. And so I got to surrender into the field. It's not often that a field is robust and sophisticated enough for me to fully surrender into. But Love Immersion is, and her entire programming was. It passed all of my little spidey sense curation tests. And I would just encourage anyone to notice what's in the way of letting her ideas come in, because they're psychoactive.
Final thought. What do you want people to know about you that you may not have shared yet?
I think I want people to know that I haven't got it figured out. Like, I fight with my husband a couple times a week, where I kind of leave the room muttering what am I fucking doing here? And I just want people to know that when someone's an expert, it doesn't mean they don't have issues. It just means they move through their issues faster, and they have a toolkit to navigate it. And I am teaching and sharing from the cutting edge of what I learned last week with my clients or my partner. So what I love about Love Immersion, I love about this community, is we're always sharing from our cutting edge, and our cutting edge is an imperfect human. So no one ever feels alienated or pedestaled. It's like, hey, this is what I did last time I had drama. You can try these tools, but it's the best I've got. And there's no, I've got this figured out. No one's got love figured out. I coach, high-end, multi-million entrepreneurs, billionaires, celebrities, and nobody's got it figured out. So I realize we're just making it all up. And I'm just going to give you some raw materials that I've used to make up maps that have been useful for me. And I want to encourage people listening to get that love comes down to a willingness to apply your creativity and your imagination to make up what could work, literally to use your imagination to bootstrap the ladders out of hell. And I can teach you how to do that. And I can teach you how to manufacture faith when everything is lost, when you're in the middle of the darkness. And I think that's the key for love to work, is to learn to manufacture faith.
Amen.
Oh.
Thank you so much. And one of my favorite things too, that you being a part of We Deepen and Love Club, it was such an honor to receive your yes when I made that invitation to you. And your response was, I am here to shift culture.
I'm here to shift the source code of how love is done in our culture, and basically to transform the current reigning narrative, which is happily ever after, into alive ever after. Because the point of being in love is to feel the full spectrum of all human emotions, not just happy, also rage, also envy, also despair, and to teach people how to navigate those difficult territories and know that that too is part of love. So
I like to wrap each podcast episode with a invitation for if you have a question for me.
Question for you. Yeah, I think if I could ask, what is the lesson you've learned from your love experiences that has most edified your self-esteem, has most raised your sense of dignity, power, value? How has being in love helped you become more proud of yourself?
I'm definitely still learning moment by moment. And for me, what's resonated most is viewing love as a process of removing layers of my ego, coupled with ever increasing acts of sharing. And, you know, I this weekend we did a 2-day biohacking love event, and I got to witness myself feel really confident on stage. And years ago, it's something that I struggled with. When I was about 27, 28, a mentor of mine put me on a microphone at a Wall Street poker event and asked me to do the introduction, and I blacked out.
Wow.
I would host events gathering women in New York City on topics like consciousness and toxins in the cosmetic industry. I was co-producing concerts, and I would never speak at the
Always in the
events.
background.
I would give notes to somebody else to speak on my behalf. Here's what you say, and tell them. And then I was studying Kabbalah. What I actually just shared, that process of love is something I've learned through studying Kabbalah. And um, and I sat with my teacher at the time. He's become famous on social media, David Guillaume. David Guillaume was my one-on-one teacher 14 years ago. And I was sharing with him this fear of public speaking, and even too of the idea that I'm witnessing myself right now hosting this podcast with you and feeling so like myself
Yeah.
on this microphone is seeing like quantum leaps. If I could go back and tell my 14-year-olds, or not my 14 years ago, my 32-year-old self that I would be here today, she'd be like, no way. But sitting across from David Guillaume, he said, when I was sharing this fear of public speaking, he said, wow, your ego is so big. You are so self-absorbed. And in the moment, I was like, no, I'm shy. I don't need to have the stage. Other people can take the stage. He said, yeah, you're so concerned with this idea of perfection that you are hoarding information from other people that could be supportive to them. So I find that sometimes our greatest fear is where our greatest genius is. And when it comes to love, it was actually even interesting for me. I've learned too that the first night, so we just did this 2-day event, and I've been doing big gatherings for in my career for the past 10, 15 years. And the first night after Biohacking Love, I came home by myself, and it was 8 p.m. and I just had hosted this 2-day, I was day one, it was at the end of day one, but hosting this 2-day event on love and relationships. And I got home and I was like, kind of lonely. Like, where's my person to come and be like, hey, we just did this big event and, it's so well, and recap. And I put on my squeezy pants, my lymphatic drainage pants, my biohack, and laid in my bed. And, I moved through that emotion. And day number 2, which was just last night, I hung with friends afterwards.
Good.
And I was there celebrating with them and hearing that reflection. They were celebrating me. And so I think of like what I've learned is also too of like how I hack my own neurotransmitters and hormones, so that in these moments where I'm choosing to live big and surrounding myself with people that live big, that's actually even there what I was inviting people into when I inviting them into Love Club and inviting them into the love immersion, is that I have this idea of love that is so big, and I don't want to do it alone.
Yeah.
Because it's lonely at the top.
Mhm.
Um,
And maybe you can't. Maybe you need a partner.
I need a partner.
My sense is that.
Even if that is you, like,
Collaborative partners.
Jordan Bowditch, that's, Ariana Hall.
Yep.
Those who have shown up for each of these love immersions, like, it's like we get to do it itself. So I've hacked that for me, even despite these moments where maybe my like that one relationship isn't quite like where I necessarily want it to be. But I really appreciate also too of what you just shared, is that even when you are in it, those 3 times a week when you're like, oh, why? So we, have the moments of suffering alone by yourself, and we have the moments of suffering alone in connection with another, and nothing is better than the other. And always, life is always moving and more is always happening. So keep investing in that big idea and the big dream, and not lowering their standards, and more is possible and available to us.
Yeah. Well, what I heard you say is that you invited in someone to support you in what you wanted that evening. And I think you've been learning that in your love journey, how to ask for what you want and honor the other person's ability to say yes or no, but to not ask at all is a guaranteed fail.
Yeah.
And so if anyone takes anything away from today, your desires are sacred.
Desires are sacred.
Your desires are sacred, and it's your job to articulate them in a congruent, inspiring way to get what you want.
One last thing, there is nothing more sexy and alive than being passionate about something.
Yeah.
And that's what draws the right people to us. I love, when, inside of the Love Club, because we're always like playing. And when I'm with people that I know that anyone that they go and interact with, that person is going to fall in love with them in some way because of how passionate we are. So interested in people who are passionate about something. It can be gardening, it can be love, it can be a particular comic book, it can be the flat earth, if you like, whatever it is for you.
It's their aliveness that you're attracted to.
The aliveness, yes. And so investing in things that cultivate that sense of aliveness and surround us with other people that are also invested in that, that is fuck yes to that.
Team love.
Team love.
Team life.
Thank you so much, Annie Lalla. Second video podcast. Here you are. I am so excited to continue to play with you in the magic, and we get to see what unfolds as the future is upon us.
I'm here.
You're
for
here.
it.
All in. Thank you for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina, or watching it new. Huh. You got the invitation. Come and be with us in person, because again, while watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or whatever, platform that you're using, there is nothing more that can happen when you immerse yourself with us. And the door is open. We are inclusive. Come and be with us. Until next time, I love you. Bye.